The television inside the hotel suite was still running when David Hayes opened the door. Muted financial news flickered across the screen, throwing pale blue light across overturned furniture, shattered glass, and dark stains soaking slowly into the cream-colored carpet. Rain hammered the windows behind the skyline while smoke drifted faintly through the air from a lamp that had been knocked sideways during whatever happened there earlier that night. David stopped breathing almost instantly, because Serena's coat was lying near the bed, the dark gray one she wore the night she disappeared 3 years ago. For a moment, his mind refused to connect the image to reality. His body stayed frozen near the doorway while security officers rushed past him into the suite shouting instructions into radios. Someone grabbed David's shoulder and told him not to touch anything, but the voice sounded distant compared to the violent pounding now erupting inside his chest. Then he saw the blood, not much, just enough to destroy him. A thin streak dragged across the edge of the bathroom door like someone injured had tried to steady themselves while moving. David stepped forward before security could stop him. Every instinct inside him screamed Serena had been there recently. Not years ago. Not memory. Recently, a detective blocked the bathroom entrance immediately. "Mr. Hayes, you cannot go in there." David ignored him. "Where is she?" "We don't know yet." The detective hesitated before continuing carefully. "But hotel cameras confirmed a woman matching Serena Hayes' description entered this suite 2 hours ago." Silence crushed the room instantly. David stared at the detective without blinking. 3 years. 3 years without sightings. 3 years without evidence she was alive, and now suddenly, a hotel room, blood on the floor, her coat beside the bed. The detective lowered his voice. "There's something else." David slowly turned toward him. The detective held up a small evidence bag. Inside it was a sonogram photograph. David frowned slightly at first, not understanding why it mattered. Then he saw the date printed at the bottom corner. 3 years ago, 6 weeks before Serena disappeared. His heartbeat stumbled violently. Because written beneath the scan in Serena's handwriting were 6 words that shattered everything he thought he knew. "You were never supposed to find her." Before police investigations and missing person reports consumed their lives, mornings inside the Hayes penthouse felt untouched by chaos. The apartment overlooked Manhattan through enormous glass windows that turned sunrise into gold reflections across marble floors, and Serena always woke earlier than David no matter how late they slept the night before. She claimed mornings helped her think clearly. David claimed she was insane for enjoying them voluntarily. That morning began like every other ordinary morning destined to become painful later. Serena stood barefoot inside the kitchen wearing one of David's oversized white shirts while soft jazz music drifted quietly through hidden ceiling speakers. The smell of coffee filled the room as rain clouds gathered slowly beyond the skyline, turning the city silver beneath early morning light. David watched her from the dining table while pretending to review emails on his tablet, though he had spent nearly 10 straight minutes rereading the same sentence because Serena kept distracting him simply by existing nearby. "You've been staring at me this entire time," Serena said without turning around. David smiled faintly. "That sounds like a complaint." "It is." "You're still smiling though." Serena finally looked over her shoulder, trying unsuccessfully to hide amusement. "That's because you're impossible." David leaned back in his chair comfortably. "And yet you married me anyway." A soft laugh escaped her before she shook her head and carried his coffee across the kitchen. Tiny moments like that used to feel permanent. Safe. Untouchable. David remembered thinking several times during their marriage that he had somehow escaped the kind of loneliness powerful men usually carried privately behind expensive suits and public confidence. Serena changed the emotional atmosphere of every room she entered without effort. Around her, life felt quieter. That illusion shattered seconds later. David's phone vibrated across the table sharply enough to interrupt the music. His executive assistant. Too early for casual calls, David answered while Serena placed the coffee mug beside him carefully. "Tell me this matters," he said calmly. The silence on the other end lasted too long. Then, "Sir. There's a situation involving internal financial records." David frowned slightly. "What kind of situation?" Another pause, more hesitation this time. "Your wife's name appeared in several unauthorized transfers overnight." The spoon slipped from Serena's fingers immediately, metal struck marble with a sharp crack that echoed through the kitchen. Neither of them moved afterward. David slowly turned toward her. Serena looked pale, not confused, not shocked, afraid, and something about that expression disturbed him instantly because Serena Hayes was not easily frightened. During 5 years of marriage, David had seen her remain calm through lawsuits, media attacks, corporate pressure, and public scandals that overwhelmed experienced executives. But this visibly shook her. "Explain," David said quietly into the phone. "Legal teams are already reviewing the accounts. Several offshore transactions were flagged during overnight audits." David's eyes never left Serena. "That's impossible." "I understand, sir. But the records are legitimate." The call ended moments later. Silence replaced it immediately. Uncertainty, not suspicion, something worse, because suspicion searches for truth, uncertainty destroys trust silently from underneath. Outside, thunder rolled across Manhattan while the room slowly filled with tension neither of them understood yet. David wanted to cross the kitchen and hold her. Wanted to tell her they would solve everything together like they solved every other problem before. But instinct stopped him from moving, because something invisible had entered their marriage that morning, and neither of them knew it would destroy everything before the night ended. By evening, the situation surrounding the Hayes Corporation had already spread beyond private investigation rooms and into public conversation. Financial blogs released partial documents connected to the offshore accounts before David's legal department even finished reviewing them internally. News channels began discussing possible corporate fraud linked to executive leadership, and Serena's name appeared across headlines so aggressively it almost felt coordinated. That was the first detail David couldn't stop thinking about. The timing. It happened too quickly, too perfectly, as though someone had prepared the narrative before the scandal officially existed. Inside the corporate headquarters, executives rushed through hallways carrying stacks of documents while lawyers locked themselves inside conference rooms trying to contain investor panic. David spent hours trapped in emergency meetings listening to people discuss damage control strategies that sounded increasingly detached from reality. Everyone focused on public image, nobody focused on Serena, and throughout the chaos, one thought repeated itself relentlessly inside David's head. She looked terrified this morning, not guilty, terrified. There was a difference, a massive difference. Near midnight, exhausted and mentally drained, David finally left the office while rain hammered the city hard enough to blur entire streets beneath silver reflections. He called Serena twice during the drive home. No answer. He texted her once more before entering the underground parking garage beneath the penthouse building. Still nothing. The elevator ride upstairs felt strangely long, too quiet, and the moment he stepped into the apartment, something inside him shifted immediately. Darkness. Complete silence. Serena? No response. David walked through the penthouse quickly, checking room after room while unease spread through his chest like cold water. Bedroom empty. Bathroom empty. Balcony empty. Then he reached the kitchen. Her phone sat neatly on the marble counter. Beside it, her wedding ring. David stopped moving completely. Rain crashed violently against the windows while the realization settled into the room piece by piece. Serena would never remove that ring casually. Not during an argument. Not during emotional stress. It meant too much to her. Which meant leaving it behind wasn't accidental. It was intentional. Like a goodbye she didn't know how to say aloud. David immediately pulled up building security footage himself instead of waiting for authorities. 11:06 p.m. Serena entered the lobby alone wearing a dark coat with the hood covering most of her face. She wasn't running. Wasn't crying. Didn't even look nervous. She simply walked toward the exit calmly while a black sedan waited across the street beyond the rain. David leaned closer to the screen. The sedan headlights remained off. Serena crossed the street. The rear passenger door opened, and she got inside willingly. The footage ended there. David stared at the frozen screen for a very long time before finally understanding something horrifying. Serena didn't disappear randomly. She left with people she already knew. The investigation consumed headlines for almost 4 months before the world lost interest. At first, Serena Hayes became the center of every media discussion connected to the Hayes Corporation scandal. Analysts accused her of financial crimes. Anonymous sources claimed she manipulated company systems for years. Online theories painted her as either a criminal mastermind or a terrified woman fleeing dangerous people. The public switched between narratives depending on whichever sounded more dramatic that week. David stopped correcting anyone after a while, not because he believed them, because he stopped understanding what the truth even looked like anymore. Police never found Serena. No airport records, no passport usage, no bank activity, nothing. It was as though she vanished from existence completely the moment she entered that black sedan. But what disturbed David most wasn't the disappearance itself, it was how many obstacles appeared whenever investigators got too close to answers. Witnesses changed stories unexpectedly, evidence disappeared from storage. Security footage corrupted without explanation, even detectives assigned to the case rotated unusually fast, as though nobody stayed attached long enough to make real progress. David noticed the pattern long before law enforcement admitted it. Someone was interfering, powerfully, professionally. And the deeper David dug into company records privately, the stranger everything became. Entire financial archives had been erased weeks before Serena vanished. Several shell corporations connected to Hayes Corporation suddenly no longer existed digitally despite evidence they once operated openly. Employees connected to the offshore accounts resigned overnight and disappeared internationally before questioning could begin. Then the anonymous messages started. At first, they arrived as encrypted emails. "Stop searching, she protected you, you were never the target." David hired cybersecurity specialists immediately, but every trace attempt failed. Whoever contacted him understood digital surveillance at an expert level. Some messages deleted themselves seconds after opening. Others rerouted through foreign servers impossible to track, and every message carried the same unsettling implication: Serena did not betray him, she disappeared because of something far worse. 3 years passed like that, 3 years of unfinished grief, 3 years of uncertainty sharp enough to poison every quiet moment of David's life. Publicly, he transformed into a colder version of himself. Media outlets described him as ruthless now. Investors admired how aggressively he rebuilt the Hayes Corporation after the scandal. Employees feared him because the warmth he once carried disappeared completely after Serena vanished. But privately, nothing healed. David kept her books untouched on the shelves, kept one of her jackets hanging near the hallway closet because removing it felt too final. Sometimes he still caught himself expecting footsteps in empty rooms late at night. That was the cruelty of disappearance. Death gives closure. Disappearance gives questions, and questions never stop breathing, until the rainstorm 3 years later changed everything. David wasn't supposed to be in that part of the city. Traffic redirected him through older streets after an accident blocked the highway near downtown Manhattan. He almost turned around twice before deciding to continue through unfamiliar roads lined with aging apartment buildings and flickering storefront lights reflecting across wet pavement. The rain that night felt endless, heavy enough to blur visibility beyond the windshield. David barely noticed the clinic at first. Small building, dim lights, nothing important. Then he saw her. Standing beneath the awning near the entrance holding a paper bag against her chest. David's heartbeat stopped. Instantly, because even after 3 years, he knew Serena's silhouette immediately. His mind rejected the possibility before reality forced acceptance onto him. Every rational thought collapsed at once while shock surged violently through his chest. Serena looked thinner now. Paler. Exhausted in ways he had never seen before. But it was her, alive. David opened the car door before thinking. Rain drenched him instantly as he stepped into the street. Serena. She turned sharply, and the expression that crossed her face shattered him completely. Not happiness, not relief, fear, pure fear. David. She whispered, hearing his name in her voice again after 3 years felt unreal enough to distort time itself. David moved toward her slowly, like sudden movement might make her disappear again. "You're alive." Serena looked around immediately instead of responding, fast, panicked, like someone checking whether they were being watched. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered urgently. David stared at her in disbelief. I searched for you for 3 years. Lower your voice. What? Please, she said shakily. You need to leave. David almost laughed from confusion. You vanished for 3 years and now you're telling me to leave? The clinic lights shut off instantly. Darkness swallowed the entire street. A loud gasp escaped somewhere inside the building while thunder shook the windows hard enough to rattle the glass doors behind Serena. The little girl grabbed Serena's hand tightly, her small fingers trembling now as the black SUV across the street slowly opened one of its rear doors. David's heartbeat slammed violently against his chest. Rain poured harder around them while Serena looked toward the SUV with visible terror spreading across her face. Not panic, recognition, like she already knew exactly who stepped out of those vehicles before she even saw them clearly. Serena, David said sharply. Who are they? She looked at him with tears forming instantly in her eyes, and for the first time since he found her, David realized Serena wasn't hiding from him, she was hiding for him. The little girl suddenly clung tighter to Serena's coat. Mommy. They're back. Footsteps echoed through the darkness nearby, slow, measured, approaching. David instinctively stepped in front of Serena and the child while shadowy figures emerged through the rain beside the clinic entrance. One of the men stopped beneath the flickering emergency light above the doorway, revealing a calm expression that somehow felt more dangerous than anger. Then the man looked directly at David, and smiled, not surprised. Not confused, expected, like David was always supposed to arrive here eventually. Serena's voice shook violently behind him. David. Listen to me carefully. Another step toward them, another flash of lightning, and then Serena whispered the sentence that shattered everything he thought he understood about the past 3 years. She isn't just my daughter. David froze. The world seemed to stop moving entirely. Rain, thunder, footsteps.